pretty awesome. 8 times.
It's been a tough weekend, but we've done it. We've bloody done it. Fantastic.
I remember just feeling nervous, damn, it's raining. That means mistakes can happen, and it's the worst thing when it happens at your home Grand Prix particularly. I remember my brother Nicholas coming into my room, and he's like, don't worry about this, bro, you got this. This is your weather. I just felt so at one with the circuit. I know exactly where the grip is, where to put my car, where not to put my car. The conditions were so tough because people were just aquaplaning off, particularly going into Abbey. And I just remember every time I'd make it through and not go off, I could see the fans sitting in the rain, like stand up, and I knew that they were with me right on the edge of their seat as I was on the edge of my seat. So that was, for me, at least to that point, the greatest race that I'd ever done.
England! What a great feeling, guys.
2014 had been a while since I'd had a competitive car to be able to win the British Grand Prix. Nico ended up getting pole, and I ended up 6th. I was really, really distraught after that. There's the dark side, which is like, give up, you know, you ain't got it, you ain't nothing. And then there's the good side, it's like, yes, you got this, you can do this. When you have a bad day, it's often, the negative side, you start listening to that and it drags you down more and more. And that's how I was experiencing that day, but I just brushed it off, came back the next day and drove my heart out, and we got that win.
Hamilton pointing to the crowd, saying thank you, and winning the British Grand Prix.
That was so important for me because, and I think for the British fans, it'd been a bit of a wait. I think as I've got older, I've been able to really harness that energy that you get from the fans. We've been on the whirlwind, we've been on such a journey together for so long. It's the best when the sun comes out on a Sunday and you see the British flags out there. It's all about the rhythm, getting into that rhythm and coming across the line first. You know what it means, not only for you, but just for everybody. It's one of the most special experiences an athlete can ever experience. Valtteri's in the lead, and I'm holding on to him. He piles into the pits, and I just keep going. And they're like, you're going to pit soon? I'm like, nah, I'm good. And I just kept going, and I did a 1-stop.
Oh, what a day. Oh, I love you, Silverstone.
It's one of those moments where you feel good because you went with your gut instinct, and it was correct that time at least. But me and Valtteri had a really great battle. On his good day, he was rapid. 2020 was such a weird year. No fans. I mean, it wasn't an enjoyable weekend because you couldn't share it with all those that have been on the road with you the whole time. However, you knew that they'll be watching, and so you still have to perform. But yeah, tyre blew up on the last lap. I remember the countdown in my ear of how close Max was at the time. I didn't think I was going to make it, but somehow. I think people have, maybe not now, but in the past, underestimate just how good a job Red Bull have done for many years with their car. Lost on the start with a bit of wheel spin out to Max in the sprint race and ended up not being able to get close enough. I knew though that the next day I had to be ahead. I had to get ahead somehow. I think I got a better start and he still held on to it on the outside through turn 1. We were dicing through 3, 4, all the way down into 5, where you think you run me a little bit wide. Came back on him, got the exit of 7.
Hamilton's going to try and get this time on the inside and Continental. Verstappen is out of the race, and that's a big crash.
We collided. That's what happens in races sometimes. That's what motorsport sometimes entails. Had a 10-second penalty, so I was like, head down, focused, trying to recover that, in which I did, which I thought was quite a feat. You're not thinking about what happened earlier in the race, all you're thinking of being in the moment and sharing that with the fans. It wasn't in spite of the guy that I was competing who crashed. It was just literally just spirit of the moment, like sheer excitement. We won the Grand Prix after colliding, after losing the position the day before, and so yeah. And that's that. When you do get your first win, you don't ever think down the line I'm going to have 8 British Grand Prix wins. Those are figures and numbers and statistics that you could only ever dream of.
And we hadn't been there for 8 years in Formula One, but you already knew you liked the track because back in 2006 in GP2, you had an extraordinary race. We got it teed up, actually. Young Lewis there, recognise that man?
Barely.
Off the grid. And I think you were about 6th, weren't you? Steaming into the first corner.
Yeah.
Usual pandemonium from junior racing.
This is when the GP2 cars were cool. They were just so cool back then.
Yeah.
With the cool Bridgestone tyres as well.
This looks a bit edgy to me, the way you've come back on the track.
Super edgy. I saw a gap and I tried to go for it.
Yes, you fell to 16th, then you're making your way through some pretty bold moves around the outside.
Well, you know how it is. You can't. There's no time to sit around. So I just had to nail as many overtaking manoeuvres as quick as possible when I did get to them.
So what's your mindset now? I've got nothing to lose here. I've got to come back through the field, or is it more focused, more targeted than that?
This is what I used to do from karting when I used to have an old car and I used to drive from the back. So it was nothing new to me. It was just, I had to try and get back to. I mean, this is super fun, super risky as well. Like that one with Ernesto Visa. I think that's Ernesto Visa there.
You could have been in the pit wall there without too much difficulty.
Yeah, I was in a rush, like every youngster is, to get to Formula One, and I was like, I've got to win. I've got to impress. This is like every time I'm on stage, I know that the Formula One teams are watching. I know Martin and Ron were watching. So I was like, every single time has to be spectacular somehow. I'm sure by now I already knew that at the end of the year, the team was out of a driver. Yeah. So I was praying that if I did the job and won the championship, they would have no choice but to somehow elevate me. They weren't going to keep me in GP2 if I won the championship. So, I mean, one more lap and I would have won that one.
Well, that's an interesting view of 16th to 2nd, like, should have won it.
Yeah. That was one of the best races I had. That and probably Silverstone in GP2.
Morning rain, greasy surface, mixed up grid. Anyone fancy the Turkish Grand Prix today?
You've got a car with 1,000 horsepower underneath your right foot, but not a whole lot of grip to go with it. We know that you like the circuit, but of course the circuit we went back to in 2020 was somewhat slippery, wasn't it? That new tarmac.
Different. Oh God, it was so much different.
So you started in 2nd gear, but you were 6th on the grid, nearly 5 seconds off pole, incredibly, showing what a weird weekend it was. Yeah. And a little bit of snooker in the first corner, some billiards, yeah?
The start was actually really good. You know, these guys just wheel spinning in front of us, and
2 Red Bulls couldn't get away.
But what's crazy is at this point, you don't know where you're braking, and you're just kind of feeling it out.
It's Hamilton on the inside of Daniel Ricciardo as Esteban Ocon and crucially Valtteri Bottas spin out. Can see riding on board just how treacherous it is.
Came in here, snap, and knew I was going to get a penalty, so I had to go around there.
Nowhere near flat through T11 because there was just no grip.
It's just
Cars
so
are coming past you left, right, and centre.
So much risk.
Down the inside goes Alex Albon. Does he take the place? Hamilton will try and fight it if he can, but he just hasn't got the grip to do so. He's skating around on thin ice at the moment.
You know, it's a balance of how much risk you want to take, and also we just, for some reason, couldn't get temperature in our tyres.
It is inters, but the tyres are still going, you know, so it's pointless for me right now.
You're giving Bono a hard time about grip and brakes and that sort of thing, because you can't hook, the car just won't hook up, will it?
No. What's crazy is with that tarmac, you know, like other tracks where you can go offline and find grip, there's no grip anywhere.
Yeah. I've never seen anything like it.
It was just, of course, I guess it made for an exciting race, but it was horrible to drive.
Yeah. Lap 9, Seb pits, and you've been stuck behind him a long time, and you pit as well. And you're going to keep those tyres now to the end of the race, remarkably.
Losing so much time, I just can't get by, man.
Copy, Lewis, we can see that.
Came behind and I was quicker than Seb, but just couldn't get by for the life of me. And then all of a sudden he just started pulling away, and I just, at that point, I was like, Jesus, this is not looking good.
Yeah. So how are you keeping your head? Because you make 2 genius decisions that turns what is actually a bit of a clumsy race so far into a glorious victory and your 7th World Championship.
Well, he got caught up behind the rear wing of Sergio Perez, and that has proved very costly indeed.
Did you see that? I don't really like asking drivers about other drivers, but it always looked like it was going off the track to me because
On that one, for sure.
yeah,
It was so
he
close.
came up the inside to T11, didn't he?
Yeah, but at that point, he would lose so much downforce and
Yeah.
there's no grip. So
I remember watching it live thinking, that's not going to work, Max. That's not going to work.
when that stuff happens and you pick up a free token base or a free overtake, you're grateful for it, that's for sure.
It's a matter of taking these to the transition.
I don't think there's going to be a transition, to be honest. It's slippery as hell out there.
And that was incredibly pertinent to how it worked out, because you stayed out on what became bald intermediate tyres.
In the dry, we couldn't get the tyres to switch on, so there was no way that even if there was just a little bit of a dry line that you would switch to the wet tyre, because you couldn't even switch them on in the dry conditions, so there's no way you're going to do it in the damp condition. And actually, I think this was a real race of, it's just experience, you know. There's no substitute for it, and all those days driving around in the wet conditions in the UK helps.
And others just kept swapping their inters and graining them straight up again.
Yeah, well, you've got to remember that this is a lower working range tyre, so when the tyre goes bald, it's like a super soft tyre, you know. It's quite a bit softer than the slick that I would put on, and I knew that, so I was like, I can keep the temperature going even if we go through some of these wet patches.
Red Bull had such a fast car that day. It was a race they should have won, really.
Yeah, I should have absolutely won. I mean, they had a lot of races that a few races they probably should have won. When mistakes creep in, that's obviously really, I would say, probably, particularly as a team, that's one thing we do less of, is make mistakes. And that's why we have achieved what we've achieved, you know.
At what point did you realise you could win this race?
Did I know I was going to win the race still at this point? I knew that I could get into the lead. I probably must have already had a thought of it by now, because I'm catching a leader. I'm quicker than him, and I'm getting quicker. I'm getting more and more comfortable as it goes through this condition too.
Here goes Hamilton on Sergio Perez. He's got DRS. Hamilton is going to make a move into turn 12. Lewis Hamilton takes the lead of the Turkish Grand Prix.
This is one thing I dislike about where we are with the sport. When we have the DRS is sometimes just too powerful. You overtake in the middle of the straight. That's not an overtake. You know, that's what I like back in your day, where it's actually had to be done on the brakes.
Yeah, DRS should put you in play. And then you have to finish it off. Sometimes it does.
It's far too powerful. But then in some places, it doesn't bloody work at all. You know, like you go to Mexico and it doesn't make any difference down the straight.
All I want to know is there's no concern of this tyre, any of these tyres blowing up, right?
Were you thinking from performance and result or safety?
Safety, you know, I don't know how long you can drive on them when they're that bald.
46 laps he's completed on these intermediate tyres, and he seems quite happy with it.
But now Bono wants to bring you in.
I guess they are, Bono, I think. I hear you. There's going to be slippery in that pit lane.
He's overruled his team.
I'm on slicks, you know, they're pretty much slicks, and if I come in that pit lane and it's slippery, I mean, as cautious as I could be, and all of a sudden I'm in the wall.
Yeah.
I was like, no freaking way.
Cost you a world championship, didn't it, in China?
China, for sure. China's definitely on the mind.
Into the pits anyway comes Lewis Hamilton. He goes straight on into the gravel track. Can he keep the wheels spinning? Can he get some momentum going? No, he can't. It's all going to get away from him. Well, the chance to lead here as the world champion seems to have gone away.
You know, you could say I probably wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't be able to make decisions like that if I didn't have tough lessons like that.
You're 28 seconds in the lead, so a free pit stop, easy and comfortable, but you didn't, experience told you not to risk that pit lane on those tyres.
Definitely.
The World Championship record is equals. Lewis Hamilton wins the Turkish Grand Prix and is a 7-time champion of the world.
That's for all the kids out there who dream the impossible. You can do it too, man. I believe in you guys. Thank you so much, everyone, for your support.
That was an incredible victory. The atmosphere was unbelievable.
I wish you could have driven that track to feel it, because there's no other track that I've ever been on that has that little grip.
Yeah.
I wish you could have felt it, because even you would say it was bad.
You've gone from 20 seconds behind early on in the race to win and a 7th world title.
You know, people told me you're foolish to have that belief in yourself, you're not good enough, and I had to just continue to believe in myself. And the only other person who believed as I believed was my dad. I'm forever grateful for that. And without that belief that he had given me, if he didn't believe, it wouldn't have happened, you know. So I think just so much went through my mind at the time, because finally I got to where I thought that where I dreamed of getting to. It was just too much to hold in. When I joined this team, it was 5th or 6th best team at the time, and everybody said it was the worst decision you could make. And I remember sitting where I was in Thailand at the time, where I had to make the decision, and the call that I had to make to Martin, and you know, take the deep breath, like, okay, I'm going to do this, and I believe I know it's the right thing for me, but it could not be. Maybe it won't be, you know, but it's a risk that I'm willing to take for that adventure. And who would have thought, you know, that we would have won this many championships? And it's just been the most incredible journey with the guys. So it's definitely not a great feeling when people talk down your success, because it appears so simple, so easy, you know, because sometimes we're so far ahead. So I love days like this where it levels the playing field, so that I can really show that it's more about me than it is the package.
How would you rate that in terms of your Formula One victories? Top few?
I mean, that's a lot of wins. It's definitely in the top 5.